for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He's Pierre McGuire. I am in the Boston area. Pierre is up in Lake Placid getting ready for the ECACs. Pierre, how are we doing up there? How's the weather?
Good. Looking out my window, it's snowing right now.
Snowing? Wow.
I went out early this morning for a cup of coffee, and it was snowing real hard. It's snowing right now. It was sunny when I went for a walk out of town and into the rink, and it's back snowing again.
Interesting. Yeah, it's always that time of year. It's kind of like a crapshoot here, especially in the Northeast, I think. We always seem to get, and knock on wood when I say this, we always seem to get one belting storm middle or late March that we least expect. I remember one I had to drive through on April Fool's Day, 1997, from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Boston, Mass, and it took me 8 hours, Pierre.
Oh, I could see that.
It was
driving there.
It was harrowing, I'll tell you that. But snowed here, and now it's 54 degrees and sunny in Boston, so go figure. But look, there's no weather effects inside the rinks, Pierre, but I'll tell you what there is just a hurricane of big games last night, big games coming up again tonight. It seems like when you look at the schedule each day, when you wake up, a good 70 to 90% of the games really have some meaning. And it's great. I love all the parity in the NHL right now, Pierre, but I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And I just want right off the bat, your take on last night, maybe the biggest positive win or story, and also the biggest negative as well.
Well, there are plenty of negatives. I think Patrick Waugh and the Islanders have to be worried. I think Mike Sullivan, the Pittsburgh Penguins, need to be worried. That's tough. I mean, if they're a positive last night would have been Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia and what John Tortorella did with Sean Couturier, and they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you know what? Hats off to them. They hung in there. They played well. There were some guys that made some mistakes, but that team played well. So that's one of the positives that I would take out of last night. The other thing, Montreal, even though they're not winning a lot of games, Montreal's playing hard, Jimmy.
They are.
I give them, and I know, our show's based in Montreal. I get all that. It's not the reason why I'm saying it. We had Jeff Gordon on yesterday, and man, was he ever good. He was phenomenal. He was
amazing.
It shows you why the rebuild in New York went so well and why the rebuild in Montreal is going so well. Just the composure, the intelligence, the ability to pass on intel or gather intel, it just really good. So another positive would be the way Montreal played versus Edmonton. And then what I would say would be a bit exciting would be the way Jake Gensel has played for the Carolina Hurricanes. I think he's played 5 games in Carolina now. He's got 8 points. He's been outstanding. He fits perfectly on that team. That was a heck of a job by Donnie Waddell and their staff down in Carolina. A heck of it. And I'm just going to say this. I'm not trying to pick on Kyle Dubas. I'm not trying to pick on anybody in Pittsburgh. But here's what I'm going to tell you right now. I sure hope they asked for Jackson Blake when they made that deal with Carolina. Now, maybe Carolina said, no, we're not doing the deal if Jackson Blake didn't. But you got to ask. And what they got, I don't know if it's going to be enough based on what Jake Gensel looks like he's going to do there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. And I'll tell you one thing, too. I urge everyone to look it up. I think it was the second goal that Jarvis scored, eh? Yeah, because Gensel had the primary. Did you see the look on Jarvis's face? Looking at Gensel like, what a pass you just gave him. Like, what was that? That was amazing. And the way he's able to seamlessly, like you just said, fit into the lineup and be up with that speed and the way they do things and the way they attack in the offensive zone speaks a lot for him. But it also, I think, speaks a lot for the coaching staff there in Carolina, who I'm sure had to have a crash session of, hey, this is how we do things here. Mm-hmm. This is why we think you can fit in. And this is maybe where we're going to need you to kind of learn a little more. And it might take a little time, but I can't find that the ladder, that area. I can't find it yet in Gensel's game because it seems like he's learned everything, like you said. So it's been a perfect fit. And back to Montreal, what you were saying, Pierre, I totally agree. And to further that, it's the culture that Jeff and Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis and everyone else on their staff are building, I think we're seeing it translate onto the ice now. You can talk about culture all you want. You can talk about what things are like in a room, but it's not really a full culture, in my opinion, until it's on the ice as well. And it's how you react in game situations. And they fought hard and they fight hard every night, Pierre, and they were in that game till the end. And I heard some people saying, well, Edmonton just didn't take them seriously. Well, that's not on Montreal. That's not their fault. And I don't think that's true at all. I think that their coaching staff had them very prepared for a hardworking Montreal team. So kudos to the Montreal team there. Now, Pierre, you brought up Philly. Excuse me. That's going to be my next topic. You mentioned the benching there, the captain, Sean Couturier. That has sent shockwaves throughout the NHL. They are still being felt today. Social media has been abuzz from former players, namely Brandon Dubinsky, who played for John Tortorella with the New York Rangers, did not get along with him, taking shots at him right now on social media. But here's the bottom line. You can argue the thinking behind it and why he may have done it. You can say, well, he shouldn't have done. But you have to sit there. You have to call a fact a fact. You have to admit reality. It worked. So for everyone out there right now who's still going off on John Tortorella saying that he's ruined this team or he's ruining the culture, well, then why'd they win? I want people to answer that question that are saying that right now. Tell me how they won then. Did they win in spite of him? Maybe that's what he wanted. You ever hear of Herb Brooks? He did that as well, and it worked for a team that maybe is, the most popular Olympic team in the history of the Winter Olympics in ice hockey. A lot of those guys didn't like Herb Brooks for a lot of that camp and a lot of those games, but it worked. And that's all that matters in the end. And look, I think you get to a point in your career, Pierre, and we've said it as well, you as a coach, me as a reporter, you got to have thick skin. And I give a lot of credit to Sean Couturier. I give a lot of credit to the Flyers players who put whatever their feelings were aside and said, all right, well, obviously he thinks we need to pick our game up right now, and we become a little complacent, and they answered the bell. So I give kudos to everyone all around on how they handled that situation.
Hockey is a fast
game.
No, it's good. That's why I was smiling. Hockey's a fast game played on a slippery surface with no out of bounds. Players are going 35 miles an hour with a weapon in their hands. It's played by nasty people who are focused and driven and unbelievably self-motivated most of the time. Mm-hmm. John Tortorella knows that. This is how he's made his living his whole adult life. Sometimes you need to poke the bear. Mm-hmm. Other times you need to face reality. And the reality is Sean hadn't played well.
No,
he hadn't played well. And so that's an issue. It's funny. You were talking about Herb Brooks. And as you were saying that, I was smiling thinking, well, Al Arbor was a pretty good coach. I don't think anybody questioned him. Mike Keenan won the Stanley Cup in 1994 in New York, not thinking it was really a popularity contest there. Scotty Bowman's won more Stanley Cups than any coach in history. I can tell you, I was his roommate and coaching mate. Not a lot of popularity contests there. Wow. You go down the line. Daryl Sutter was a heck of a coach. Yep. You know what I mean? Joel Quenneville. Everybody thinks Daryl Sutter or Joel Quenneville is just a super nice guy. He is, except he's a really tough coach. Claude Giroux is a pretty nasty guy. Yeah. Daryl Sutter in L.A., I'm not sure they'd be doing Halloween parties for him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't think you can ever debate this issue because people are going to be locked on their opinion, one side or the other. Mm-hmm. Jimmy, what I would say is what John's doing is for the betterment of the team. Hockey's not an individual sport. And sometimes you got to make decisions that are really tough.
Yeah.
They really are. I don't think John was overjoyed with the fact that he had to sit Sean Couturier in the game last night, but he wanted to give 18 guys and 2 goalies an opportunity to win, and he didn't think the best opportunity to win was with Sean Couturier in the lineup. He wasn't being mean. He didn't say Sean Couturier is a bad person and a bad player and a bad this and a bad that. He just says he's not playing well right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just a reflection of where society is today or not. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know, how much social media drives it because I just don't pay attention. But I would tell you this right now: Tortorella's coached as well as any coach in the NHL this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think we've said that all along. I mean, it's either him or talking in our eyes. It's coach of the year.
Well, Andrew Burnett better get some. And that's another place we need to go. Not Nashville's hats off to Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett and even David Poyle, who was part of it, as a senior advisor to Barry now. I'm worried about San Jose, Jimmy. I know the people there, like the people there. David Quinn and I go a long way back to the mid-1980s. I had Mike Greer on the ice when he was a kid in Boston before he went to St. Sebastian's. I'm just telling you right now, Jimmy, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear, well, we got this guy coming and that guy coming and this guy coming. They don't have enough coming because those kids are going to get pulverized next year if they bring them out of school or they rush guys out of the American League. They're in trouble, Jimmy.
Yeah. So we'll allude back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago with Montreal, right, Pierre? I think that one of the things going on in Montreal wasn't this stacked with prospects, obviously, when Kent and Jeff took over.
No.
But there's one thing I think maybe can you count on more than one hand in the last 2 to 3 years where the Canadians were just completely embarrassed and really just humiliated in games?
No.
Well, I can count 5 right now this season for the San Jose Sharks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we agree. I'm going to say more than that, Jimmy.
Probably more than that.
Jimmy, more than that.
So, Pierre, what do you do then when you see there's no culture being built there right now? There's no direction. How do you get that without maybe big changes up top? Do you bring in some veterans in the offseason that have won or, are well respected within the hockey community that could come in and work with these guys? Do you bring in some physical guys? You're just talking about these young kids coming out getting pulverized. Do you bring in some physical guys to kind of complement that and have sort of that backing? If you mess with our young star here, you're going to mess with me. I don't know. They got to figure it out though, Pierre, because there's a difference. There's a rebuild and there's being stuck, right? And they're stuck right now.
Oh, they're stuck. They're stuck. One of the things I'd focus in on is how do I make the defense better? You'd be able to find older guys, bigger guys, tougher guys that can stabilize games. What happens is they can hang for 15 to 20 to 25 minutes in a game. Last night they had a 2-1 lead in that game. They had a 2-1 lead in the game.
Crazy.
And then they lose 8-2. So I think it's something they're going to have to look at in making their defense better. Up front, for fans that don't know, Will Smith is a grade A++ prospect. He's an elite prospect. He plays at Boston College, plays on that USA line, with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault. Fantastic. Okay, it's fun.
But he's a great.
So much fun to watch them play. And by the way, congratulations to our buddy Greg Brown.
Yes.
In the Hockey East, congratulations to him.
And Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah, Macklin is
not just Rookie of the Year, he got the Player of the Year as well.
So congratulations to him. But I'm deflecting away. But I'm just going to say that Will Smith's an A++ prospect.
Yeah,
but not overly large, Jimmy. So you want to take him out if you're San Jose because maybe I'm not saying he's not Connor Bedard. He's not. Okay. But at least he's going to help you get some people excited about your team. But he's going to get beat up.
Yeah. And first impressions are huge, right? I mean, when you bring a star player into a man's league and he hasn't played in it before, I would imagine you want to help that adaptation process. You want him to be able to kind of come in there and realize what's going to happen here and not have it just all thrown in his face at once. And that's why I'm saying you got to get some guys in there, not just physically, just mentally too, to protect these kids when they come in as well.
Well, that's right. That's right. I just hope they can find a way to start building up the depth, especially in the back end. They're going to have to.
Yeah.
Because that's the one way they can start to stabilize some of this. And you talk about standards. I think David actually creates really good standards. I think David's a really smart guy, David Quinn. So I don't know if it's so much about standards, Jimmy. I think it's more about there's just not enough high-level talent to compete. And we've talked about it for a long time now, you and I, the West became a nuclear buildup. All these teams are adding bigger, faster, stronger guys. And so now you see it whenever teams go in there from the East to play in the West. You saw the shenanigans that happened last night in Edmonton, with Pizzetta and Sam Carrick. And I remember when the deal went down with Anaheim and Edmonton, and I said, ooh, the underdog in this one is Sam Carrick. Nobody really knows that this guy's a driven human being. Like, he's a tough kid.
Yes, he is.
He can play too.
Yeah.
Pizzetta's a tough kid. But
I know. I'll tell you this: the Bruins were after him, Pierre. That's a fact. I know that for a fact.
Carrick?
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, he's a tough kid. He's one of those players. He's an eye test player.
Yep.
Okay. You got to go watch him play. And when you do, it's not about points. It's not about any stats. It's not about analytics. Okay, he wins races. He takes hits to make plays. He goes to the net. He drives opposition players nuts. He's fearless. He'll block a shot with his face if he has. He'll do whatever it takes to win.
Yep.
Those guys matter.
Yeah, they do. They do, Pierre. Look, I'm not defending the job that Mike Grier is doing because people will know I've said it many times. I went to high school with him. But I also just want to say, Pierre, and I don't know if you agree with me, I do look at, though, let's look at San Jose over the last 5 to 7 years, right? I almost feel like, and I felt this as it was going on, and they weren't the only team that did it. Some teams were able to get away with it, some weren't. They were living in the past a bit because they had so many successful seasons, and they maybe thought they could carry that a little further than they did without replenishing not just the system and like prospects. I'm talking without replenishing, like you're talking about, depth guys on defense, depth guys up front. And it seemed like maybe they didn't examine enough where the culture was going. And that's on Grier and that's on his predecessors. But I'm just saying they need to really look at that right now. It's not just about bringing in the high-end players. It's like you said, making them competitive. And I think that's how a rebuild builds because people start to believe in it. Like you just said, what happens in Montreal? Everybody is believing. And you couldn't say that 3 years ago, but they've done a great job changing that culture. Anybody
that says they're believing in the rebuild in San Jose, their nose is growing by the second.
I'll ask, what rebuild? Point me, show me how they're rebuilding.
The one thing Jimmy will tell you, if you're a listener or viewer of the show, the one thing I told him before we started the show, we're not going to assassinate people. We're going to be kind to people, but we're going to tell the truth.
Exactly.
You cannot tell me that rebuild in San Jose is being done properly. No. You cannot.
It's not.
You can't.
It's not. So I ask you, Pierre, and I'm just spitballing here for ideas on how maybe they get it going. And, you got David Quinn, BU, Mike Grier, BU. There's a man who's legendary and is the reason, the BU mystique is what it is, goes by the name of Jack Parker. And, hey, maybe he's done it. Maybe he hasn't yet. If I'm Mike Grier, right, and I know I'm not trying to say that pro teams and college teams are the same, but you do have to kind of build. You have to team build, right? There weren't many better team builders than Jack Parker and team builders that knew when to reload, knew what I needed to keep this going, or I have to maybe pull a 180 and go in a different direction. He should call him up and pick his brain. That's what I'd do. I hope that's already been done. Yeah. I don't know whether it has or it hasn't, but I hope that's already been done. Here's what I'm really not fearful, because I don't have a bet in the game. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Yeah, but we care about the people, Pierre. We do. Yeah, and that's a really good hockey market. I've done a lot of games there, coached a lot of games there. That's a good hockey market. So let me ask you, I'm just going to present this, Jimmy, this way. This is what I've been thinking about. Well, I've been doing all this here. I'll show you my papers. I've been doing all this prep work, okay, all day. So I feel like I'm in school now, preparing for an exam. So here's what I'm going to say. You just answer yes or no. Is Anaheim going to be better next year? Than San Jose, or just better in general? Just better in general. Ooh, I'm going to lean yes, but I'm not so sure. I'm going to say yes. Okay. I'm going to say yes. Yes, right? No, with what they have, yes, they will. They will, and I think Greg Cronin's establishing an
Don't
identity.
forget, they're getting Cutter Goche at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So he's going to be 25 to 30 goals next year.
Yep.
That's a lot of goals for a young kid. He'll be 19 years old. Okay, so they'll be better. LA Kings, are they going to be better?
Yes.
They will be. Seattle Kraken?
Yes.
I think they will be.
Yeah.
I do. I think they will be. Vancouver Canucks?
Yes.
They're going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton Oilers?
Yes.
Okay. You think Calgary will be better next year?
Yes.
I'm going to say maybe, but
Okay.
maybe's not no. You know what I mean? Vegas Golden Knights?
Yes.
Dallas Stars?
Yes.
Nashville Predators?
I don't know enough about them, but based on what they're doing right now, I'll say yes.
Yes. Colorado Avalanche?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't even brought up Minnesota yet. I haven't even brought up Chicago yet. I haven't brought up Winnipeg yet. What's going to happen to San Jose?
I know. It's
like you could not be in the Western Conference as a rebuilding team at a worse time. And I don't know whether that's been discussed or not anywhere. I don't know. But I'm telling you, this is what I do day in and day out every day. Study trends, tactics, depths, strengths, weaknesses of every organization in the league. You tell me who they're going to be better than next year.
nobody.
In the West. Nobody.
Yeah. And that includes Chicago, who I still think has a lot of work to do, even though they have Bedard, but they're on the right track. Yeah.
What happens if they get Celebrini? Chicago. It changes the rebuild pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. That speeds it up a bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't want to take shots at anybody, but what Mike Greer inherited was not good.
No.
Was not good.
No. I hope they get out of it, Pierre. I hope they do. I really do. Pierre, I want to look at the standings before we turn it over to our listeners and viewers here. And I'm going to start in the East.
Okay.
You mentioned the Islanders are fading there quickly. You're looking at the wild cards right now. You got Washington a point back on the Detroit Red Wings, but they've got 2 games in hand. You've got the Islanders 3 points back with a game in hand. And then you've got Buffalo 5 points back, but actually all those teams I just listed have games in hand on them. My cutoff point right there right now, and maybe I'm saying this too early and I'll eat my words, but I'm just telling you how I feel right now. I've been thinking about it all day, is the Islanders, and they're barely in that cutoff point right now. They're right on the line for me. After that, I don't see any of those guys making playoffs. I know they're mathematically still in it. They haven't been officially eliminated. But I look at the way that the Capitals are playing right now. I look at the way that I think Detroit can get back to playing. And I look at the Islanders right now. They need to go on a tear. That's it. Buffalo, I just think, is too far back. Because
the Islanders just lost 4 games in a row. Okay. Yeah. They just lost 4 in a row. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you the fact. The Washington Capitals play the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Washington Capitals are coming off a long Western trip. They won their last 3 games on that trip. Phenomenal accomplishment. If they can win tonight, which is a hard game to win, obviously Toronto played last night in Philly. They lost. They're going to be angry. They're going to want to, win the game. And it's a hard game for Washington because when you come back from a long Western trip, it's always really tough. It is. It's hard.
Well, it's always that game, right? When you look at the schedule and you say, oop, maybe there's a loss there.
Yeah. So you can, and what I want you to do, Jimmy, if you can, for our viewers and listeners, because I looked at it today, check out the schedule that Washington has coming up. It's hard.
Oh yeah. So
it's hard, Jimmy.
I'm working on I'm going to write a story right after this just about the Bruins' remaining schedule, which is also hard, but they're in a lot better position than the Capitals. Right now, according to a website I like to use a lot called Tankathon, they do a great job looking at the draft and all that and the lottery rankings. The Washington Capitals right now, out of all the NHL teams, have the 4th hardest schedule remaining. .593 winning percentage for those teams. Pierre, the Capitals.
Look at their schedule from now to the end of the month. Read it out if you can for the viewers.
I'll pull that up right now.
Because I'm just telling you, Jimmy, I looked at it early this morning. And when you read that schedule, you're going to be like, holy mackerel, if they make the playoffs, these guys deserve it.
Yeah. Great coaching job. Okay, let's pull this puppy up here.
So it starts with Toronto tonight.
That's right. Toronto tonight. Saturday at home against the Bruins. And then they go in. They've got the Sabres. Wait a minute. Sorry, Pierre.
No.
Yeah. Give that up. Toronto tonight. Carolina at home on Friday night. The Jets at home on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit at home on Tuesday. Then away against Toronto on the 28th. Back home against the Bruins on the 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And we go into April.
Look at that schedule, man.
Sabres on April 2nd. The Penguins on April 4th. The next night at Carolina. April 7th on a Sunday at home against the Senators. April 9th against the Red Wings. April 11th, the Sabres again. April 13th, the Lightning. April 15th, the Bruins. And then they close the season out on the road against the Flyers. The only thing I see going for them, Pierre, is they do have quite a few home games.
But man,
that's murderer's row.
They have one soft touch game, Ottawa. Out of all those games you just said, that's the only soft touch game they have.
But Pierre, you know what? I hate those games when I'm in a position like Washington. They're not soft touch to me. Those are the games you look and say exactly what we're just saying, and then you wind up losing. I saw it last night. That might have been a 6-2 game, Pierre, but if not for David Pastrnak and Linus Ullmark in that game, the Senators are in that game. And
in the second period, I agree with you. The second period, I thought the Senators were the better team.
They took it to them.
They really did in the second period.
Those teams can sneak up. You know what I'm saying? So
I do. No, I do. I do. I know exactly what you're saying. But of all those games you said they're playing,
yeah,
the only one that would be perceived as a soft touch game would be Ottawa, because by then they're looking at when's the next cruise ship that they can get on. You know, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, they look right now, Pierre, like this. So this site will say toughest opponents remaining and then easiest opponents. But here's the thing. They're putting, and I don't agree with this, they're putting not just the Sens, they're putting the 2 games against the Sabres, the game against the Penguins. All right, I'll give them 2 games against the Red Wings. I don't think that's easy. And the game against Philly, I don't think that's easy. So
no, all those teams are playing for their lives.
Exactly.
They're playing to get in too. So I mean,
I would only have Ottawa right there in easiest opponents. That would be the only one I'd have for them.
That's the only one I'd say. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So I give Spencer Carberry and his staff a lot of credit. Give Brian McClellan a lot of credit. You know, they traded Joel Edmondson. You trade away Anthony Mantha. And so Kuznetsov moves on. He goes down to Carolina. So you dumped parts, but then a kid like Hendrix Lapierre gets an opportunity to play. He's playing really well. They're playing. The one thing that I think we talked about this yesterday with Washington, hats off to them. They're playing with youthful enthusiasm, and it's been infectious because you can see Ovechkin's rallying around that youthful enthusiasm.
And let's not forget the man between the pipes right now, who's really done a great job, Mr. Lindbergh. I mean, Pierre, this guy has been, to me, one of the better backups over the last 3 to 5 years. And there's been times where he's stretches of a season had to fill in. And every time he's done pretty well. But it's just, guys like that, they fly under the radar, except to people watching the games every night like us. But he has been amazing. What a godsend he's been for the Capitals.
No, he's been good. He's been really good. But you could attract that back to when he was a kid growing up in Lakeville, Minnesota. He's always good. He's always a good player. Yep. I feel bad, his brother, who's a defenseman with the New York Rangers. I feel bad. That's a big injury for him, by the way. I know we're getting off, but whenever they say, well, it's weeks, I don't like that term.
No.
You can say it's 5 games, it's 10, but when you start to say weeks, you're like, whoa. He's an important member of the Rangers. I know they've got depth at that position, and they insured their hand a little bit at the trade deadline. So I respect that. But the truth is that Lindgren's an important player on that team.
Would you, if you were them, I mean, okay, so we're both agreeing it sounds serious. If they're saying weeks, why not just rest them till the end, Pierre?
Well, I think they will. I think they will. So what do we have? 2.5 weeks left in March, and then you got 2.5 weeks left before the playoffs. So you're talking about, a month and a bit.
And let the 2022-2023 Boston Bruins be a lesson to all for not doing that. Remember last year, and I know they were going for the records. I understand it. I get it. But I just remember watching from now until the end of the season at this time last year, Pierre. And I remember saying to my friends, I think I said it to you, and I said, they need to rest Bergeron more. He's hurting. He's hurting.
I can vouch for that. You definitely told me that.
And sure enough, it caught up to them in the playoffs. So just be wary of that for teams that are, if you got enough of a cushion, you're comfortable enough, and one of your main guys is hurting, you're way better off to just rest him right now.
When the Canadiens were winning a ton back in the 70s and the 60s, they used to send older players, key players, to Florida for, a weekend, 4 days.
Just to refresh?
Just to refresh.
Wow.
There's no salary cap then, and they could do it. And the only reason I know that is Scotty used to tell me we would take this guy and send him to Florida, or we take that guy, especially guys that played big minutes or had bumps and bruises. And you wouldn't do it for the whole year. They'd do it down the stretch when they knew a guy was an older guy, and you could just send him down, put him down to Florida, let him relax, and some other young kid would come in from Halifax and play unbelievable. You know what I mean? There it is. I mean, I think about it again, Montreal, because they are the measuring stick for how to develop players and draft players back in the day.
Yep.
You look at it, all the guys that came through and the scouts, guys like Del Wilson and Ronnie Caron and Scotty Bowman and Sam Pollock. I mean, Claude Ruel. You look at the scouting staffs, Dougie Robinson. All these guys were phenomenal scouts. Like, they were crazy good. Cliff Fletcher used to be a scout for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, I can go down all these great scouts that worked for Montreal, and that's why they were able to do it. And they didn't play politics. Like, Ronnie Caron was as bombastic as any man you'll ever meet in the NHL. And
right.
Cliff Fletcher was as mild and polite and kind. Two totally different guys. Scotty was a firebrand. He was a crazed hockey maniac in a good way, not a bad way. Yeah. So he was different than Claude Ruel, who was calm, cool, and collected. So they just found a way to get really smart people to work for them, and they had a dynasty. Like, they really – it's how can you argue Montreal Canadiens are the greatest dynasty in hockey ever?
Yeah. Maybe in sports. They were right next to the Yankees in my eyes.
Yankees have to be.
Celtics.
Yeah.
I'd say Yankees, Canadians, Celtics. There you go.
But it all started because of scouting.
Yeah.
Development. That's how it started.
Well, there's one thing you always say to me sometime when we're evaluating teams, and we're not going to say the teams, but you'll say this team needs more brain power around them. And that's what the Canadians had, right? Let's go back to how we started this whole show off, talking about the San Jose Sharks. Maybe they need to start to get more opinions, more different views and experience in terms of brain power out there. I know there's a guy that both of us know pretty well, Mr. Ray Sherrill. I think he could help them. But somebody like that, get some people in there who have been through the wars and been through it, and really won't be afraid to tell the boss you're wrong. And that's how these teams succeed. That's how they did it.
Good thought.
I want to just switch to the West, and then we'll go to our listeners and viewers here and answer some questions. Pierre, let's look at that wild card right now. Now, man, what is going on with the Vegas Golden Knights, Pierre? They're getting healthier, but they're not getting better. What is going on with the Vegas Golden Knights?
I think there's a question about the goaltending. I don't think the goaltending's been as good as it was a year ago. Obviously, they've been dealing with some injuries at that position too. I can tell you, having done it, when you win the cup one year, it's really hard to turn it over and win it again. It's really hard to defend.
Oh, it's amazing what Tampa did.
Tampa, 3 straight trips to the final, 3, and COVID related, not easy, really, really difficult. So what they accomplished there was off the charts good. So I think that's part of it, being the defending Stanley Cup champs. The Eichel injury, obviously, he's back now, but the Eichel injury, the Carrier injury, now he's back, so that's positive for them. Adding Hannafin, I think, is going to help, but they don't have much more wiggle room, Jimmy.
Yeah.
They don't have much more wiggle room.
Here, it's almost like they can't get traction. It's almost like they're in quicksand. Is the way the feel I get there. And now you look behind them right now, and thankfully Minnesota hasn't really gone on a huge run. I mean, they're 6-2-2 in their last 10, but they haven't ripped off a ton. but they're still right there. They're 4 points back, and then I cut it off at the St. Louis Blues. I just don't see Calgary or Seattle getting in there. So I cut it off at St. Louis. Do you see either of those teams, the Wild or the Blues, leapfrogging the Knights, or you think the Knights will actually, the veterans, the experience, will get it together?
I think if they get it done, which I believe they will, then they'll be fine, and they'll be very tough to play in the playoffs. Minnesota is interesting because remember when Johnny Hines pulled the goalie?
Yeah, and it worked.
It worked. And, when sometimes that's a catalyst for something great. And I remember at the beginning of the year talking to you about an example of why Dallas was going to be really good. And I said, Jimmy, they beat Colorado, and the way they were able to beat Colorado, that's going to hold them in unbelievable stead the rest of the way.
Yep.
I watched the game and I was like, okay, these guys got it going on. Like they figured it out. And look at their season. How much does anybody even talk about Dallas?
Yeah.
Dallas is great. So I think that thing that John Hines did, for whatever reason, that gives them a major rallying cry. And I don't know if it'll be enough to get them in, but I think that's been the impetus to get them to where they are right now.
For sure. And you look at some of the guys they still had to give away at the deadline, Pierre. It kind of reminds me a bit of Washington in a way, where they had to maybe give away some beloved guys in the locker room, good veteran guys. They go away. Duhaime was one I really, for them, I wouldn't want to see go, but it's just part of the game. It is what it is with the cap. But yet they're still doing it. And I'm with you. I think that Hines provided that rallying cry that they need. And I'll go further, Pierre, too. I know he's not in there every night, but Fleury saying, no, I want to stay. Guerin literally said, I will give you a shot at a cup. Your time's winding down. You want to go after one more, go for it. Him saying that to that locker room, even if, he doesn't win every game, it just said, look at this guy, future Hall of Famer, and he wants to stick around and help us sneak into the playoffs. That would motivate me if I was another player.
That's well said, and I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. So, and then we just look at the last team there, Pierre, the St. Louis Blues. Look, I think Drew Bannister, for a guy that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and who knows if he's going to be there next year, he's done a pretty good job there coming in.
Mm-hmm. The guy that's been really good there, though, and he's not getting nearly enough love, I think, nationally, is Jordan Binnington.
Oh, yeah. He's quietly become
he's really I know he won the cup, against the Bruins and everything else in 2019. But Jimmy, there's some nights they're winning games, and they're winning because of him. He's really.
I like to call Jordan Binnington the goalie version of Brad Marchand, and you can imagine why. I mean, he's an agitator. His emotions can get the best of him, and he's always had to sort of walk that line the fine way and channel those emotions in the proper direction. I think over the last few years, you'd agree, Pierre, he's failed to do that. But it seems this year, he's still walking that line. He's still the fiery guy, but he's using that fire to fuel himself and the team instead of, as a distraction, so to speak.
Well said. I agree. Yep.
And I think that's why they're hanging around right now. All right. Before we head over to the viewers and listeners here, let's talk about Manscaped, Pierre. They just sent in, as you can see, I have a nice shirt here from our good sponsor, Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code ITEST for 20% off plus free shipping. Again, that's manscaped.com. The code is ITEST for 20% off and free shipping. And Pierre, we can vouch. It's a great product, and we appreciate them being on board. And I highly suggest to all our viewers and listeners out there, go check that out. And now let's open it up to the questions here. Relaxation Music says, hey, Pierre, since you do see Montreal, or do you see Montreal going after any college free agent or any free agents that you see? Kent has some connections in college. Well, before you answer, Pierre, I mean, Jeff Gordon did talk about that early on, so I urge you to check out our episode with him if you haven't seen it. He did discuss the whole college free agent scene, says himself, obviously with his kid at BU, he sees a lot of it, but he loves scouting those, and they do want to tap into that market if they can.
No, it's a smart market to tap into right now. I was doing a list today of top college free agents and drafted players even that might not be signed, and it's a pretty substantial list. I would imagine Montreal will be relevant in the free agency market at the college level. The only question I'd have is, will they be able to, at this point in their development, will they be able to get top-end guys? Because here's part of what agents will look at. What team will present the best opportunity for the player to get to the National Hockey League the quickest? And for Montreal, it's got a wealth of depth on defense and a lot of young guys coming through their system. Sometimes that's not always the best place to go.
Yeah, and Pierre, look, and I do think I'm with you. I do think one way or another they tap in. I would imagine a forward, is what you just said with the defense there. But I think, and just the feel I got, and that's just my opinion. I'm not saying this is what he said verbatim. Just the feel I got from Jeff yesterday is they're looking more into the offseason and exploring more veteran players. They've got a ton of guys.
That's what I think too.
You know, I think they want to start to sprinkle some guys around that youth. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. All right, next question. John Smith, that great logo. We've got it, John, by the way. Thank you for sending it. How far do you think the Leafs get this year? Which heads would roll if they went out in round one? Cheers, guys. Pierre, I don't like to talk about guys getting fired, but if it was something, I would think it's on the coaching end, considering Trey Livens just got there and he inherited him from the prior regime.
The one thing I'd say is there's a new leader of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. His name is Keith Pelly. Keith hired me at TSN. He's extremely aggressive. He's highly cerebral. He's very in tune in what it takes to build a winning culture. You like to use that term a lot. And I think that he will evaluate everything. He starts in April in his new position. And recently he's been running the DP World Tour in golf. So I think a lot of that's going to come down to Keith Pelly and what he decides is positive about the Leafs and what he thinks is a drain on the Leafs. And it'll be if they go out in the first round, I think it'll be a very interesting time to be evaluating the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I told you I don't like the matchup for the Bruins if it's Bruins Leafs just because of the history and they're due. But if I'm and that's why if I'm the Leafs, I'd rather the Bruins than the Panthers. I think the Leafs don't match up well against that. I don't think anyone matches up well against the Panthers. So that would be interesting to watch to see how that unfolds. All right, next question. Jason Logan. Hey, Jay. Can the Hurricanes make the Cup final this year? And if not, do you think they will get a Cup before Stahl retires?
I do think they could actually get to the Stanley Cup final this year. Jake Gensel's proving that. Kuznetsov is proving that right now. They're starting, obviously, to get some real good goaltending play from Anderson and Pochetkov. So, I mean, there's a lot to like there. They're extremely well coached. They've got more than enough depth on defense. They've got more than enough firepower up front. As long as the goaltending keeps it together, I don't see why they can't be an Eastern Conference final team and potentially is, a team that goes to the Stanley Cup final. Can they win the Cup before Jordan retires? I don't know. That's a hard question. I think there's 7 or 8 teams that can win the Cup this year.
Pierre, before we move on from Carolina too, I don't know if you saw the story or you just know because you know everybody in the game, but a story came out late last week. I think Jeff Marek or Elliot Friedman broke it, and they were saying, people have been asking what's going on with Brendan Moore's contract because as of now, he has no contract for next year. Mm-hmm. And apparently this is the second time he's done this. The last time his contract was up, he did the same thing. He said to ownership and to the management, I'm not signing until you take care of my assistants. I love that. That really hit me. I'm like, he's a stand-up guy. I love that he's doing that. And I love that he appreciates how much they're a part of everything he does.
Well said, Jimmy. And, his assistants are Jeff Daniels, who when I was coaching in Pittsburgh was a very resilient player for us, and Tim Gleason, who was a longtime Carolina Hurricane defender, who does a real nice job with that defense we just talked about. So those are the 2 assistants there. I can tell you one thing. Rod Brind'Amour was a really good teammate. Rod Brind'Amour is a really good coach, and Rod Brind'Amour is a really good coworker. He really is. Yeah. So I'm not surprised about any of that. I did hear those stories about him saying, you got to take care of my assistants. and it doesn't surprise me. Like there are not a lot of coaches that have the street cred to be able to pull that off. He's one of the guys that can pull that off in the league.
I love it. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Jimmy, my question is, if you're Toronto, would you extend Samsonov? I think that just depends what he does. I don't do anything until the playoffs are done. He's got to prove himself to me there. I think that's obviously a position that they really need to secure going forward because it's been an Achilles heel for so long. So, Pierre, I'd imagine you feel the same.
I do.
Yeah. So there we go. All right, next question. Hey, Pierre, this is Relaxation Music. Hey, Pierre, what do you think? Before we go, sometime Relaxation Music, tell us what actually is your relaxation music. I'd be interested to know. Hey, Pierre, what do you think of your Suzuki and Doc on the first line? I think Cole is suited for the 2-line, especially in the playoffs. You need big players in the playoffs.
So here's my question. Let's just say you did that. Who's going to center for Cole Caulfield?
Just going to ask that.
He needs a playmaking center because he's not going to manufacture opportunity as his own. I think you need Doc in the 2-hole because I don't think you have anybody else coming that's got that size to stabilize the opposition's best players. Doc still needs to get a lot better on faceoffs. He does. He was starting to show before he got injured that he was getting better and working hard at it. But no, I still think Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caulfield's a real good first line. I can tell you this: Jake Gensel played as a first line player. He's not much bigger than Cole Caulfield.
No,
he's not much bigger.
He senses the game.
Yeah.
All right, next question. BL, who's the MVP as of today? Ooh, it's a great question.
I'd say Nathan McKinnon.
I'm going to go with Nathan McKinnon as well. All right, next question. Alex Evanowski, boy, is Minnesota's future bright. Once they get the Parisi and Suter contracts off the books, they might be an emerging power out of the West and in the Central. Totally agree. That has obviously been an anchor for them to deal with, and that's why they had to make some moves the last couple of years that I don't think they necessarily want to make, Pierre.
Yeah, and one of the real big prodigies they have is Jesper Wallstedt, the goaltender. Brock Faber is already showing you how good he can be. He's been tremendous. I remember when the coaching staff change happened, and I remember saying to you,
you said it right on the show.
Biggest beneficiary is going to be Brock Faber.
And boom.
And I have some inside intel on that because the last 2 summers, my son has been in the Minnesota Wild development camp, and Faber's been, one of his pals. And he says, Dad, this guy's at another level physically compared to most kids my age.
Wow.
And you could see that, what the way he's playing, handling 30 minutes a game in the NHL as a 20-year-old, that's a lot of high miles, and he's handling it fantastically well.
We just brought up MVP, Pierre. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch. At least you got him in the top 5. I'd have Faber in the top 5 for Calder. Would you?
Oh, yeah. 100. Yeah, I'd have him in the top 3.
You got him in the top 3. All right. I didn't know if I'd be able to.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, here's what would have changed everything had Fantilli not gotten hurt.
Yep.
And I mean this because he was starting to really come. He might even pass Bedard.
Pierre, I was just going to say, you and I had this conversation last year in the summer. I remember talking with you about, and you said to me, Bedard's no lock for the Calder. Watch out for Fantilli. I remember you saying.
Yeah, no, because you watch Fantilli. I've had a chance to watch him when he played at Kimball Union for Tim Whitehead. I watched him play for the Chicago Steel. Obviously watched him play at the University of Michigan. And so you could see the development path that he was on. And not a lot of kids go through the path that he's been on and handle it as successfully as Fantilli. He's another guy. He's young, but he's a man physically. He's got unique man strength for a kid that's not even 19 years of age yet.
Yeah, he's going to be a stud. And that's why people don't worry about we'll get on that another time. But a lot of people down on Columbus in the future there. I don't think it's as grim as everyone thinks.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Got some guys coming. All right, next question. Ogie Oglethorpe. Do you see Jonathan Marchessault going back to Tampa Bay this offseason, maybe replacing Stamkos? I never thought of that. That's a valid idea there. It could happen.
Why would Vegas be in a rush to not have Marchessault?
Cap space.
Maybe. I know one thing.
and he's a UFA.
Yeah, no, but I don't know why they wouldn't. Like, if you're Marchessault, would you really be in a rush to move? I mean, I would give them a hometown discount to stay in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's a no tax state. I mean, it's just a thought.
I think a lot of people, the fact he's not signed, Pierre, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think a lot of people are jumping on to that right now, trying to make scenarios there. But people forget exactly what you just said. It's a no tax state, and also the familiarity. He's won with them. Those are his brothers for life now. He's happy there. People keep saying, would he go home to Quebec and help the Canadians? No, and that's no knock on the Canadians. That's a knock on the taxes in that province, whether he gets to deal with instead in Vegas. So I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know Steven hasn't been signed yet. I remember when he was going through the last negotiation, and everybody's like, well, he's going to Toronto. Guaranteed he's going to Toronto. I'm like, no, he's not.
We'll see what happens. Vegas will have to do some cap juggling as they always do. All right, next question. Marco, who would you target as Ottawa's coach for next year? Interesting. Marco brings that up.
That's a really, really, really good question.
So apparently last night on the Sens Bruins broadcast on the TSN feed for Ottawa, somebody, I didn't see who, but it was popping up everywhere. Could Chris Kelly, the assistant coach for the Boston Bruins, former Ottawa Senator, Ottawa native, come home and become the head coach of the Ottawa Senators?
Why not? I don't know why that wouldn't be a good choice. Kelly was a really good player, Stanley Cup champion. He's learned a lot coaching in Boston.
Yep.
He's worked for different people too.
He's still young enough to connect to the general.
And you know what? I'm so tired of people saying that. Stop with that nonsense. And I'm not mad at you. Oh. You mean to tell me Scotty Bowman couldn't come back and coach today? Like, that's not for this bull crap.
You're right.
It's so nauseating. You got to have a young guy to connect. Really? You mean Al Arbor couldn't coach today? Buzz off. Like, I'm so tired of this nonsense. It makes me sick.
Well, look at the winning coaches right now. They're not that young.
Tell me about all those the Doogie Housers that are doing so good right now.
Yeah. I can't tell you one off the top of my head. So that's a good point.
I think that's the biggest cop out. When I hear general managers say that, he connects so well with the young players.
Do you know what I think?
He connect better with older people.
Yeah. Well, hey, Pierre, you know what I think that means when a GM says that is that he struck out with the older guy.
Maybe.
He knows he can't get him,
Yes.
That might be why. But again, coaching idea, I mean, well, we've already said we think there's a guy that's got 3 Stanley Cups from his time in Chicago that we hope is eventually let back in.
I don't think he'll be going to Ottawa.
I don't think
he would be a really good choice. I'm going to throw a
Staios connection. Who's a Staios connection? I'm trying to think who he might have.
There's a guy that's coaching the Toronto Marlies right now, John Gruden.
He was mentioned there already, remember?
Okay, yeah, he's a Staios connection.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they need that. I think they need somebody that's won in the league. I think they need somebody that's going to come in there and kick the door in.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a lot of potential guys that I could like. I know you're not going to like this. Why couldn't Claude Julien go be the coach there?
He knows the market.
You don't think those guys would be petrified having him come in?
Yeah.
So they need this thing's got to stop, like with all of the free passes. And I think Jacques has been pretty hard on that group.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jacques Martin's been pretty hard on them. And so they've been better. They have been better. But, you talk about standards all the time, and I think they need a coach that's going to come in there, create standards, don't deviate from them, run a really slick bench, really be a good bench boss. And if guys don't want to pull the rope, punt them. Do what John Tortorella did last night with Sean Couturier. Sorry, you're not playing tonight. I don't care what your last name is.
Pierre, there's something we never really touched on, but we were hearing it, but we didn't really say it. But it's public knowledge now, and Staios had to come out and deny it about 10 days ago. And those are the rumors surrounding Brady Tkachuk. When everything was kind of going down the tubes and people saying they need a change in culture, some things start to surface behind the scenes and publicly. Could he ever be moved out? We didn't believe it would happen. We still don't. But ever since Staios came out and shot those down, have you noticed how good Brady Tkachuk's been again?
Yeah,
I don't know if it was that. I don't know what happened, if they had a talk. I have no idea. But he knows his team's losing that game last night, and he's still challenging the Bruins bench. Yeah. I loved it. He's been a man on a mission the last 2 weeks.
No, Brady's an elite player. I'm just telling like he is. He's an elite player. I can tell you when I was there, one of the things I talked to the other management people about was to bring in somebody to teach Brady internally how to lead a team. Mm-hmm. Because he had never done it. He didn't do it at BU. He was 17 years old. Yeah. He's never had to do that. And I know his dad played forever, and I know his dad was a real popular teammate wherever he went. But that's not the same. It's not the same. It's not his
dad. He's him.
Yeah, exactly. So Jimmy can't say it on the air, and I can't either. But I told Jimmy there was a player that I proposed that we could get in Ottawa to come, and I was basically told no. And I think about it now. If we had brought that player in, Jimmy, and you can't say the name. If we had brought that player in, how do you think Ottawa would be right now?
I think they'd be pushing for a playoff spot, if not in it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I just think it comes down to bringing in a coach that's going to create high standards and maybe bringing in an older player that can really help strengthen the room and the leadership component of the room.
The problem is they're a capped out team, so it'd be interesting to see how they do.
Are they?
All right, let's take one more and we'll wrap her up. What do we got? Justin LeBron, great interview yesterday. What is Jeff Gorton's best quality? Well, I think I said it on here yesterday, Justin, and I'll say it again, is that he believes in himself and he never gives up. And he's willing to do anything. As Pierre said, he's got humiliation. He doesn't mind. If he never thinks anything's below him to do when he was working his way up the ladder. And I think Pierre brought it up too. And, I know Jeff didn't want to say it, but I thought that was great that you did, Pierre, because I think you're absolutely right. And I think he has a lot of dignity. And we saw that, as you pointed out, with the way he handled the exit in New York.
Yeah, I respect him a lot. I like his knowledge of the league. I like the fact that he understands the importance of character. I like the fact that he doesn't panic. And the biggest thing is he's not afraid to delegate authority. And the best general manager I ever worked for, Craig Patrick, delegated authority unbelievably well. And it's a big reason why those Penguins teams won as much as they did. And when you have somebody that's that confident in their own abilities that they can delegate, it makes everybody feel more empowered. It makes the organization just feel better. And I think Jeff's really good at that.
I really do too. And I love the relationship him and Kent seem to have. And
I agree.
How in sync they are. All right. Well, we appreciate all the viewers and listeners there. And again, thanks to Jeff Gorton for that as well. That was a great interview.
Oh, was he ever great? He was so good. Hey, did you talk about Factor yet?
I did not talk about Factor. And I want to remind everybody, by the way, to check out Factor. And let me pull up that promo for you right now. And you know what? You can maybe order some of that in time for the playoffs. It's a good meal to have when you come back home from work. You're running late. You want to just get home. You don't have time to cook dinner. You want to kick back, and you want a nice, healthy meal after a hard-working day, not just order some greasy food in delivery there and put on the calories. Well, you want to go to Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Make eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You've got over 35 different options a week to choose from. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. Like I said, stock up now for the playoffs. You're going to thank me because those games are going to start fast and furious when it's the first round. You're going to be locked in and not have to deal with cooking dinner. So go over right now. Head over to factormeals.com/itest50 and use the code itest50 to get 50% off. That's code itest50 at factormeals.com/itest50 for 50% off. Pierre, I'm telling you, I don't want to ever deal with that. Like, I want to be set up at 6:30 when I don't have to be covering a Bruins game, ready to watch all those games when they're coming on and you've got the simultaneous games. The first round is so much fun. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm going to have my Factor meals ready.
You know what I told my wife today on the phone? You'll laugh. I told Melanie, I think when the playoffs start, I'm just going to drive up to our home in Quebec and hibernate in the woods and have all the TVs set up. So maybe I'll have you come up and have some factor meals.
War Central.
That's the plan.
I like that. The war room. We'll do that, Pierre. Well, hey,
the plan.
We'll see how far the Bruins go, but if they get knocked out early, I'm shooting up north with you.
Okay.
And on the way, I'll say hello to our good friends at Hurley's. By the way, I can't believe that was almost a week ago now.
By the way, you know what I would like to see us do is do a playoff preview show live at Hurley's.
I think we should too. And I also was proposing to Rod too something before the draft, because the draft again will be so important to the Montreal Canadiens,
especially for Montreal. Yes,
on a buzz around there, so it'll be a good place to be. Maybe a week before they head down over to Vegas for the draft. Just hook up. Maybe we'll get somebody from the Canadiens to join us.
You know what else is really good though? They pour good Guinness there.
Well, I can have that, Pierre. Thanks. I miss it. One of these days I'll cheat, but then my stomach is not going to be good the next day.
All right. Also, don't we have a really special guest?
Well, I was going to get to that. So we had a great guest yesterday, and it was great just talking hockey with you today, Pierre. But tomorrow, with the Bruins and Rangers playing such a crucial game this late in the season, an original six rivalry, I figured why not get a guy on who's been on both sides of that rivalry, was part of a trade of a man we discussed a lot with Jeff Gordon yesterday. That would be Jean Rattel. And that guest tomorrow will be Hall of Fame defenseman and former Ranger and Bruins defenseman Brad Park. Really looking forward to having Parky on. He's one of the best.
Oh boy.
Love talking hockey with him. Some of the most treasured days I've had in his career were just kind of being a fly on the wall in a pub up in Hampton Beach or Seabrook, New Hampshire, where they both had beach houses, and just shooting the breeze, but also just listening to them, because I would learn so much listening to those two legends of the game speak. So Brad Park here on the ice test tomorrow. And then Friday, Pierre, we will be doing a live shot with you in between your ECAC semifinals games in the men's tournament. And I'm working on, we'll see, I haven't got a definite yet, but I'm working on another guest who might get involved. Has some Hockey East history to him.
Right. I know who he is, but we won't say the name yet.
Won't say it yet.
But I think you've procured a very significant guest for Monday.
And then looking ahead to Monday after the weekend, yes, a man that has been front and center the last few days down in Florida at the GM meetings, and that's NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly will be joining us here on Monday at 4:10 p.m. on the eye test. We'll look back at some of the stuff that was proposed this past week in Florida and look ahead to a lot of different NHL events, a lot of hot NHL topics as well. Wouldn't mind asking him about Atlanta and Salt Lake City. I'm not sure I'll get a real answer, but I got to ask him. We'll talk about a lot of stuff with Bill Daly. So looking forward to that as well, Pierre.
Yeah, good job, Jimmy. Really good.
Yep. We're rocking and rolling. All right, everyone out there, enjoy the hockey. Thanks to our production crew back there in Montreal. We will see you on the eye test tomorrow with Brad Park, Pierre McGuire, and myself here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the eye test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.